microphone?
Can we move it around?
Yeah. Is that the only one we have?
Why don't we set closer?
What?
I can set closer to you.
Well, tell me we'll do our best. Sometimes we get in the heat of the moment, we'll forget to move
The last couple of meetings, it seemed to have microphones that were running around.
Why don't, Cindy, do you want to sit in the center? Or?
I'm over here so I can see the screen.
Okay.
Hi, Kevin.
We do need to,
Hello. I can hear you guys just fine.
Great, super. You can hear me. If I walk away, Kevin, can you still hear me on the line?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. And I'm gonna stay over here. So let me call this meeting to order, please. Homeowners Advisory Council, February 17th, 2022. Welcome everyone to our second hybrid meeting of the HAC. Tonight we are attempting to return to our pandemic practices about questions during the meeting. If you wish to be recognized to ask a question on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom or do the same if you are here with the meeting. If you would like to make a public comment, please sign up on the sign-in sheet, which is here on the speakers table, or send a chat by 6:15 if you would like to make a public comment. We have one person who has reserved a public comment slot in the minute. That person, after that comment, we will alternate between people here in the room and people on Zoom.
All right, Sandy.
Yes?
So the microphone appears to be on that little table kind of there. It was a little hard to follow you while you're saying that, mostly because anybody who gets closer to you, we hear them over you. So the paper hitting the table, we heard that. I think we heard, yeah, so either whoever's talking needs to be a little closer, or we also need to, you know, it'll pick up the closest thing to it. So if it's there on the table, everybody needs to be very quiet.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you being on Zoom tonight to help us out.
I'll be the Zoom monitor. Speaking of that, I mean, I know you just laid some ground rules, I think, regarding questions. So can anybody else see the questions as they go into the chat, and how do we want to respond to those?
So, questions that go into the chat, Ivy can see, correct, Ivy? And Ivy's going to bring them to our attention as appropriate. But I've also suggested that people can use the raise your hand feature and actually be recognized and ask their question from Zoom, just as anyone in the room can raise their hand and be recognized and ask a question.
Okay,
So
that sounds good. Yeah, I would definitely suggest you use the raise your hand and people can talk, because sometimes the questions in the chat can get a little extensive and a little overbearing. So, and I'll let Ivy be the monitor of that then.
Great. All right, is everybody good with our basic ground rules?
I have a hard time hearing you with that mask on.
I'm sorry, I live with a type 1 diabetic. We have to be cautious. I apologize, but it's a part of the world I live in. So I apologize. I will do my best to make noise and be as clear as possible. We have received a series of questions for this meeting from Patrick McClellan. I will be reading his questions and providing an initial answer or referral to an appropriate person. Time was not allotted this request on the agenda, therefore public comments may be delayed at the end of the meeting. The meeting may stretch out. And Patrick's first question is on the call to order. It is, he asks, since Mr. Williamson is not here anymore, and here Patrick is referring to an email communication, email he sent to me in my answer about the organization of HAC meetings. Since Mr. Williamson is not here anymore, can we have a discussion among residents on how the meeting is run? The answer is, you are free to bring a group together and prepare a proposal for consideration. Your results would require approval by at least site authority staff, if not the full site authority board. You could bring your recommendations to the site authority or to the HAC. And then let's defer to Jake to introduce our new executive director for the site authority.
I would like to introduce John Lazarus. Why don't you just come out here, John?
Sure.
He's been newly appointed. He was introduced by Lori Nichols during the CAG meeting. And we'd like to welcome him. I think he has a few words to say.
I'm sorry, what's your title?
I'm the executive director for the site authority. I also work in another function on campus. So welcome. Thanks for having me. Thanks for welcoming me. My name is John Lazarus. I've been on campus for about 3 years. Have a couple of different backgrounds, and I'm really new to all this. I have an open door policy. If you ask around campus, I think you'll hear that I'm a hard worker and I'm thick-skinned, and so I'm looking forward to getting to work and hearing about how we can make this all work better. So thank you.
Thank you.
And if anybody has a moment to ask a question, I'm always happy to answer.
Thank you.
So thank you, John. We are very glad that you're with us. Having the vacancy in site authority staff has been difficult, and we appreciate your coming to fill in that spot.
Thank you.
We appreciate it a lot. So the next item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes. These are our first minutes that rely on the video recordings of the meeting with a timestamp updated agenda. And that agenda is edited to reflect actual meeting occurrences. May I have a motion to approve?
Sandy, can you hear me? Sandy, this is Angel from Supervisor Ramirez's office. Before you proceed with the motion, do you think you could stand nearer to the mic so that way we can all hear you? You're presenting very important information and we really want to hear from you.
Thank you, Angel. I've moved next to the microphone. Is that better?
Awesome. Yeah, it's much better. Mr. McClone, is that clear for you? Thumbs up or anything?
You get as close as possible. You're very clear. I can barely hear what she's talking about.
I see. Yeah. Okay. It does sound better for me standing near the mic. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. And thank you for accommodating us Zoomers.
It is our goal to have an effective meeting in a hybrid setting, which means both populations have to be able to hear. We acknowledge that. We have 2 microphones and we have not been able to get them to reliably work in this space. They work in other spaces. They just don't appear to work in this. So we have a technical issue that we will continue to work on before next month.
Sandy, on the minutes, I can't approve the minutes, not that I disapprove, I just haven't had the opportunity to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. So I saw reference to, Jake, you had a written summary of the video, or
Here's what you have. This is what it is.
Can we show that side by side so we can see people?
so is there a written document we're approving? Or
It's an agenda. It's a
time.
amended agenda.
It is
It has
a,
the timestamps from the video.
So we're supposed to reference them and go to the video?
okay,
Yes.
So it's the actual recording itself, which is in red, and then it goes down, that everything is timestamped, and then when you get down to
okay.
the public comments, then it lists the people, kind of what they talked about, and then.
I got it. I'm sorry. I didn't even open the email. So I can't make a comment. I can't approve tonight.
I can't approve it tonight either. I object to minutes being taken this way.
So
all right,
if I,
so if I have a motion to approve from anyone on the HEC,
Well, I'm curious why Carolyn objects to the minutes.
well,
Oh, that's good.
in order to proceed with the conversation, I need a motion on the table that we can then discuss.
I haven't reviewed them, I'm sorry.
Okay,
No, I guess I'll have to wait till next.
all right, so that sounds like, Kevin, have you had the opportunity to open the email on the minutes?
Nope.
Okay, so I suggest we defer the approval of the minutes until next month. That will mean,
I think we've done this though between meetings by email. Can we do that?
we certainly
Just for
could,
residents in Sweden.
we certainly could.
But so essentially, I'm just trying to understand what I'm obligated to do is, I see the agenda, that's pretty easy to fan through that, the timestamps and so forth. My concern is, I'm not worried about the videos being altered. I just don't know if they're gonna be legible. So do I have to listen to the whole darn thing?
Well, if we can't be heard, of course we have to listen. Somebody already complained that they couldn't hear
Well,
Sandy.
Yeah, but if someone assured me
They
that,
couldn't hear me.
if someone assured me the video recording was legible, I could live with just reviewing that, going, yeah, okay, cool. If the video is legible, because the video is the video, right?
Well, why can't we just
But not-
overlay closed captioning on it?
I don't know if that works very well.
I'm looking at Ivy as our technical support. Can we put closed captioning on the video?
They're automatically generated by YouTube, so they can be questionable for proper nouns and things like that.
Yeah. But
But
for the most part, you get the gist of what's being discussed.
Okay, so with an amendment to the current process of adding closed captioning so that people would clearly be able to understand what was said.
Yeah, in case we have audio problems.
Something would need to review that to make sure it's not, because you can't have somebody reading it and you're seeing what they're reading the document. It still needs to be reviewed.
Well, you're saying closed caption, actually, it's automated, right?
Yes, which
But
makes
it's
it
still-
not accurate. Most
Yeah,
closed
I
captioning,
understand.
like most news stations, it's done live.
So, yeah, so this, it creates some complications. What I will do personally, I don't know about anyone else, I will try and listen through the whole video. Just to make sure the sound seems reasonable and so forth. We have a record of the meeting that's useful. That takes 2 minutes to scan. It's not a big deal.
Okay,
they're having a hard time hearing everyone.
Do we have a microphone available?
No, I have an actual, something that amplifies the voice.
Well, you, me, and Tom could all sit together closer. We can put this, and you can sit closer too.
I'm pretty loud. I think everybody can hear me.
Sam, you could also sit here, maybe that will help.
I'd rather be able to turn and see everyone in the room, if that's all right.
Sandy, people can't hear you.
Can people in the room hear me?
No, I can
hear. It's nothing.
I have a yes or no. Well, I have two muffled and cannot understand. But I have yeses down here.
Probably.
Okay.
Projection.
So let me turn and face the folks having the most difficulty. Does that help?
If we've decided that this isn't working and we want to postpone it to next month, I think that you should do that so that our visitors can get back to work.
Right, so we are postponing the approval of the minutes to next month. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, we are postponing that. We do, however, have a question about the minutes. And the question is, there are no minutes posted from the last meeting, which is a violation of the GSL. Where are the minutes, and will someone on the HAC or UCAM be fined for the violation? Minutes are posted once they are approved, which happens at the subsequent meeting, unless like tonight, we make a postponement to that approval. The video of our meetings is now posted the day after the meeting to facilitate public access. The video will be updated with the annotated agenda once approved, and the combined posting will be the official minutes.
You have a hand raised.
Okay, Mr. McCone, you have a further question?
Yes, I do. I'm talking about the January minutes. They weren't posted. It was a YouTube video in January.
Patrick, we're having a hard time understanding you.
Okay, can you hear me okay now?
That's much better.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I was talking about the January minutes. It's a YouTube video. So where are the minutes? In my GSL, it says they're supposed to be posted.
Patrick, the January minutes are approved at the February meeting. This is the February meeting. We have just decided to postpone approval because there are questions about the potential understandability of the actual video.
Oh, okay, so did we vote on the minutes or voting on how we're going to post the minutes? There's two separate things.
No, we are voting on the new format of the minutes and approving minutes in their new format. The new format includes an annotated agenda with timestamps and editing to update that agenda with items that were not on it originally, but happened at the meeting. So that you have an agenda form that represents everything that happened at the meeting. And then that document is timestamped with where to find that information in the video recording. Now, that will constitute the actual minutes for each of our meetings going forward in this hybrid format.
Okay, last question on those minutes. Who's pushing that and who's the site authorities approving it?
The site authority has approved it. I believe the written document approving it came from Lori Nichols.
No, my question is who's pushing for the video format? From the HAC or is it from Kennedy Wilson?
The attempt here is to have the most accurate representation of what happened at a meeting. The video recording is the most accurate representation.
Okay, I understand that, but who's the one, HAC or Jake, who's saying we should do this?
Don't recall.
Tom is saying we don't know where the idea originally generated anymore. We've been talking about doing this since we moved to doing things on Zoom.
Okay, just to be clear, you don't know who's the one that's come up with the idea to change our minutes, and I've been here for 16 years?
I recall discussing it. Who started that discussion? I don't know, but we did discuss it maybe last month or the month before.
Well, last month, I remember Jake telling us that we were doing it and the site authority had approved it. That's the first I heard.
Okay.
That's what I remember. Carol, and I agree with you. Jake came up, said it. He talked to somebody. It's weird how you're changing things and nobody knows why we're doing it or who's doing it. I really question that decision.
I think it has to do with the amount of time that it takes to do meeting minutes.
No.
Let me finish, Patrick, please. That it has to do with the amount of time that is spent on doing both the video and meeting minutes. You're doing double work. And at the same time, it's like that the interpretation that the person doing the meeting minutes is, it's difficult to communicate the intensity people are bringing to the various issues. And because we are going with the Zoom and we're paying for Zoom monthly, there's a charge. It seemed like this was a way to get a result that for the archives is the most accurate communication of what transpired. And some of that is that the technology that is now available was not available 15 years ago. And so it's like, what is the most effective way to use technology and use our time and my assistant's time to produce something that in the long run, I would, ask everybody, how many times have you gone back? And I know upon occasion it's very important, but going back and looking at past meeting minutes, and based on the amount of time that is spent on them. And it really comes down to, at the present time, we're spending over a day on the meeting minutes beyond what we do as far as the recording of downloading it to YouTube and making it available to everyone. It seems like the best use of time.
Okay, if I might
So,
continue.
Patrick, I would like to go on to the next item of the agenda. This is
You
only
didn't
the,
answer my question. You didn't answer my question. Jake, first of all, whoever Jake is, everybody should go to because we can hear him clearly. And two, I understand why you're doing it.
Patrick, we need to move on. You may put this comment in your public comment at the end of the meeting. So we are now at the public safety report. Sergeant, you wanna-
Hi, good evening. Sergeant Rosas with Channel Islands Police Department. I'm here to report on a couple of incidents. Can you actually see her? Because somebody sent me a picture of it. If I stand in front of you, okay, no problem. Okay, so I'm here to report on a couple of incidents. Officers contacted a group of subjects that were trespassing at the construction area, one of which was cited and released for a weapons violation. Separate incident, there was a burglary reported to a vehicle near the area of 1040 Santa Cruz Highlands. Second, additional report, there was 2 non-residents of University Glen that were cited for being in possession of open container of alcohol in a vehicle. Separate incident, officers were contacted on a suspicious person that was going around knocking on doors and asking to be let in. He was not a UGlen resident and ultimately was arrested for an unrelated warrant. On a separate incident, Channel Islands PD had received multiple noise complaints. A resident of 100 Cathedral was contacted regarding the matter. And in addition, officers have contacted 2 subjects who were sleeping in vehicles on separate occasions. They were advised and cited for parking violations. Those are the incidents that we have received for approximately the last 30 days that resulted in crime report, information report, or just officers responding. Something that I wanted also to pass on is we're working on developing and putting together a bike patrol program. We're really excited to be able to bring in this to the University Glen. Don't think I've mentioned this before, but I actually come from another CSU where I was part of that program, so I'll be one of the ones helping this program develop. So, bike patrol. Yeah.
I have a question. Subjects sleeping in the vehicle, were they residents of UGlen or
They were
were
not.
they associated with UGlen in any way?
They were not related to the UGlen.
Where were they sleeping? What area?
I believe one was contacted in the area of Smugglers and Cathedral, and then another one over Santa Cruz by Kyle.
You said they were in their car though, right?
In their car, yeah. No, I don't have any additional information about that.
How many of these incidents, like the man going to the door who was asking to be let in, how many of those instances are related to Costa?
Related to Casa. From that one that I'm talking about specifically, this was not related to Casa.
What about the construction site?
The one on the construction site was not related to Casa.
I just know you mentioned there was an uptick from Costa.
Right, I believe that was in the last meeting.
Right, so I just wasn't sure if there's something going on there that we should.
Yeah. Not with the information that was provided. I wasn't involved in those incidents, but it doesn't seem like we had CASA residents involved in any of
How
those.
many of these people
I don't have that information.
I
Sorry.
just wondering if they're coming in randomly from outside or how they know that.
Yeah, I think that's an important question
Sure.
that we need to know. Why are people sleeping in their cars in our neighborhood? If they're students, that's one thing, but if they're just coming from somewhere else, I think we
So-
need to know that.
Sure. In one of those incidents, there was one that was identified as a student. However, he's since moved on his car and was advised not to park or sleep in his vehicle there. The other one, my understanding is that he was not a CSU-CI student.
I definitely want to be understanding everyone's.
Sure.
Circumstances. I
Absolutely.
also want to be fully understand.
Absolutely.
what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
So we have another question from Mr. McCone. In the past month, how many children playing ball-sitting cars and kids skateboarding calls have there been? Sergeant, do you have any data on this question?
I don't have any data or incidents related to this, those actions. Not sure if there was any calls generated.
Well, possibly you could just check and bring us back information next month. We'd appreciate
I'll make a
that.
note of that.
Sandy, we have a question in the chat.
All right.
It says, question to CSUCI police, are there any probation members within our Euclid community? Can you explain more on the knocking door incident?
As far as probation, I don't have that information. As far as what do they want to know regarding to the subject going around knocking? Anything specifically about that? None. All I know is that it was a non-Euclid resident, not student associated to campus.
Was the
Donna.
one that was in association with this, was it a for a felony or was it for something to count?
I don't recall the type of warrant he had.
It's a little.
Any other questions for the officer?
There are two follow-up questions. Was this a repeat offender and did DCFD know about it?
So if we're talking about
The door knock.
the door knock, I'm not sure if we had any previous contact. Speaking to the officers that were involved in that incident, it sounds like he just kind of stumbled upon you, Glenn. And if I recall correctly, it was a BCSO warrant, or it was a local warrant.
I'm sorry.
BCSO warrant, the Ventura County Sheriff's Office.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now moving to the Brightview landscape report. Eric, are you online?
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Eric Lopez. I am the Brightview account manager for the University Glen. I just wanted to quickly go over a couple items that I have and what we've been working on. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the dog park. So the dog park is fully open now. We have removed the fencing that was there and have fertilized the turf. We are seeing some progress with the fertilizer. It's doing well, nourishing the turf, and it's regaining its color. We will continue to monitor this area very closely and checking in on the progress of the turf removal. We have noticed that the entryways of the dog park do get muddy, especially on rainy days. So to prevent any slip or trip hazards, we are working together with Jake to set up a proposal for correcting this issue. Second thing on my list is the trees. So we have successfully completed phase 2 of the annual tree trimming and the tree removal. We have also grinded the trees that were removed. We may do a phase 3 if needed in the future, but that is to be determined. Hello, was it somebody else on? I didn't really catch that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Eric. We've muted that person.
Oh, as I was saying, a phase 3 may be needed if we need it in the future, but that is to be determined. Unfortunately, Randy Spitzer, the tree manager for tree services, couldn't make it to the meeting, and he couldn't be on. I think he's on vacation. So that is to be determined. And we have noticed that the camphor trees around the property have been dropping a lot of foliage, and we are continuing to focus on these areas, cleaning up the fallen leaves. The third thing I wanted to go over was the maintenance. So we are finishing up February, going into March, and we are transitioning from winter to spring. During the spring, so temperatures rise and plants come out of their winter hibernation. By the time the plants have already come out of hibernation, they have a lot of stored nutrients that then pushes out the new growth, which is good. But then along with the new growth of plants, you also get a lot of weeds. And to prepare for this, we've been focusing on weed trimming along the DG pass, preparing for the spring. DG stands for decomposed granite, for those who don't know. And we are continuing to focus on cleaning up leaf debris and mowing every other week. The last thing on my list is the irrigation. We are continuing to work on irrigation consecutively, going down the irrigation clock list that can be found on the university website. I believe the name is under University Glen Irrigation Watering Schedule. This is online. It's on the website. Anybody can access it. If they want to take a look at it, they can. We have recently completed checking the clocks B17 and A18. Those are located along Frenchy's Cove. I think it's called Frenchy's Cove. And are now moving on to B19, which is along Elephant Seal. But this is the locations of the clocks. So if you were to go on the list, you can see that we're going down from top to bottom. B19, clock B19, it would be the next on that list. If there are any special requests to check out irrigation, or any special requests for maintenance items, please reach out to Jake and he will send a work order to us and we can address what has been requested. That's everything I have right now on my list.
At first, I'd like to say that the tree trimming on Landing Cove wasn't, the tree trimming on Landing Cove was less than aggressive. We have huge branches coming down on cars, people, front patios, everything. So I really feel that the trees need to be trimmed back in a more aggressive style every winter to prevent that. And it's freaking me out. And the other thing is, I can't remember. Oh, several of the plants from the landscape replanting are failing to thrive on Landing Cove as well. So that's another issue. Right.
Submit a report.
Okay. Even though it's not my home?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So what Tom has suggested to Gabrielle is that she submit a work order for those issues. We had one other question.
I do. I have a question. You, Eric, you talked about the dog park. So the
Yes.
dog park was fenced off for about 5 or 6 months. You said today you fertilized it. What was the process that occurred for the last 6 months when that dog park was locked up?
So we actually didn't fertilize today. We fertilized the turf.
Eric, Jake is gonna take it.
Okay,
I want to hear, they were paid to do it, right?
they haven't been paid yet to do it.
I
Okay.
want to hear, okay.
Okay.
I too would like to hear from the landscapers what they did. I'm tired of secondhand explanations.
If I'm the, okay, respectfully, Toby, I'm the one that told them how to do it, and we worked together. What we did was that we cordoned off half of the large dog park, and we fertilized and let it grow. It took almost 3 months for it to come, at least 3 months for it to come back. And then we closed off the other part of the large dog park and did the same thing. And then it was scheduled this past week, first part of February, for the fence to be taken down, and it all opened up. And so that is what we did. And that they continue to fertilize it, and we continue to move forward with it.
So, well, I looked at the fenced up site and the non-fenced, and they look exactly the same. So did you just throw some fertilizer on there, or what was exactly the process? Eric?
We applied a fertilizer, which is I would think it was 1668, and we irrigated the water enough so that it allows for the fertilizer to sink into the soil.
So you irrigated it and threw fertilizer on there? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that's the process of fertilizing the turf and making sure that it gets enough water so that you don't let the fertilizer sit on top of the turf, otherwise it would burn. So us fertilizing and irrigating the turf is the correct way to help restore the turf health.
Was there any aeration? Did you puncture the soil? Did you turn the soil or do anything to the soil and the sod before you fertilized it?
To this point, we haven't done aeration in the dog park.
Okay. Do you think that would help?
Yeah, that can definitely help, but we wanted to go ahead and try fertilizing first to see if that's going to be able to help in the process of the revival of the turf.
Let me add something about the aeration. The aeration, though, aeration creates plugs. They sit on the top. I use the dog park occasionally. My dog will eat that stuff like crazy. So you need
dirt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
is that bad?
Yeah.
Well,
so we need to be sensitive to the fact that there are animals that, I don't know, are there any other dog park users here? Okay. So my dog will dig holes. My dog will eat stuff, not stuff. My share dog. Yeah. So that's the disadvantage of aerating. So we need to figure that out.
Well,
not saying we don't do it, but we may get complaints from.
And Jake, how much was there extra additional charge for their work?
They put in a proposal that included the fertilizer, but the majority of it was the fence rental.
The what?
The fence rental.
Oh, and how much did that cost?
$1,000.
For the last 6 months, or
It's almost a year.
a year?
Yeah.
You want to say that again? Because
That the largest charge had to do with the fence rental, which was $1,000 for the time that we had it. And they just took it out recently, and we put it, I believe it was midsummer, last summer is when we put it. So it's been over 6 months.
Toby, do you mind? Let me just a quick follow-up. So in terms of irrigating the dog park, Eric, I can't remember the zone maps, but we can't just turn on the irrigation system just for a localized dog park area. I believe it covers a rather large area. So when it comes to irrigating the dog park, we'll have to just kind of turn it on for a whole large area if we want to do extra irrigation. So that's just something we need to be aware of.
There's spigots there. Can't we attach some kind of sprinkler system to the spigots so they?
Gabrielle, just a second. Toby had his hand up next.
I just wanted to ask Tom, when you talked about your dog eating the plugs, when when I have aerated large areas, you aerate it and then you fertilize it and you water it. If there was a fence around it for 3 months, by the time it was open for dogs again, what you're talking about, the debris and everything would have completely dissipated.
But we're not talking about putting fencing in anymore, I guess.
I know, but that's what I'm saying, is why didn't they do that in the first place? It's been fenced off for 6 months.
So I think we all acknowledge, and I've had discussions with people, what we were doing wasn't working.
But these people are professionals and they said they were going to rehab it, they were paid to rehab it, and both sides did exactly the same. So when we're taking advice from professionals, do they really know what they're doing? That's my question. $1,000 and 6 months later.
I actually think we were doing that longer.
Well,
Okay.
it's a sad
It
situation.
just worked.
Can we move forward?
All right. May we proceed?
No, I have actually one more question. Eric, you were talking about the controllers that you were working on or going to be working on. What happened with 024?
024. I'm not sure.
That's the one that covers smugglers and. Okay, let's take it offline.
Yeah, it was my
Are you sure?
understanding that had reached the top of the list.
This is what that's right. Let's take it offline.
All right.
There's no.
So Eric, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we now have Angel Garcia, who's a representative from our District 5 Supervisor District Office, bringing us news from the county.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, awesome. Sandy, can everyone in the room hear me okay?
I believe so.
Awesome. Well, before I begin, I just want to thank everyone for their patience and thank you to Sandy. I understand that there's bound to be some tech issues that will be run into, but I do appreciate everyone's patience as we work through this. And thank you very much, Sandy, for organizing this and for the invitation again to the supervisor. Unfortunately, the supervisor could not make it today. However, I am here on the supervisor's behalf. So I do want to give a brief update, and then I want to take the most of the time to hear your input, if anything of importance to report back to the supervisor. So I think the most significant thing I want to report on behalf of the supervisor is that, as you know, as of today, the statewide mask mandate has now been removed. So currently, the only mask mandate that is in effect is those who are unvaccinated are required to wear masks indoors, and those that are fully vaccinated do not have to wear masks indoors. The county is following the state guidance. So if you want an update as to what exactly is the state guidance on COVID-19 as of right now, I did put the state's website in the Zoom chat for your reference so you can take a look at it. In summary, they have a message. As soon as you click on the state's website for COVID-19, it says, thanks to millions of vaccinations, California's economy is open. There are no county tiers, capacity limits, or physical distancing requirements, but COVID-19 has not gone away. To safely go about our daily lives, we need to keep taking steps to prevent the spread. And then under that, there's different tabs about questions related to testing, vaccinations, childcare, whatever have you, and a little bit of a FAQ under it. So that's kind of a summary of where the county lies right now with the current mandate. And also, we do not have any scheduled Board of Supervisor meetings for the rest of the month in February. We are scheduled to continue in March. So March will be the next Board of Supervisors meeting. And another thing too is I do recommend that if community members are able to please participate in March. So we will be having a board meeting on March 1st, which is a Tuesday. And we will be having some updates coming soon related to ARPA. What ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act, which is good funding opportunities for disadvantaged communities. So I do recommend that you tune in and participate if you are able to. So those are the updates I have. As always, I'm here to listen to any input and hear out any needs that you feel of importance that I can relay back to the supervisor. And if there's anything that comes to mind towards the end, you are more than welcome to call our office and we'll be more than happy to help you. Same thing too, if you have any neighbors that speak Spanish, we have office members that speak Spanish and we'd be more than happy to help. And I will include that information in the chat. Thank you so much, Sandy, and thank you, community members.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions in the room?
There's one back right.
I was waiting.
Oh, so yes, Angel is a graduate of CSUCI, and so we have people who recognize him and are waving, and I think we appreciate your time and joining us tonight and your willingness to take information. Okay, so we have two quick questions for you.
So one, Caroline will like this. So there's a lot of discussion a couple weeks ago about the potholes in that one section of roadway near Lewis Road. Do we decide if that's county or campus?
No, I don't know.
Jake?
He should find that out.
Well, that's, Jake, do you know?
So what we know is that we recommended to people, we have a section of road between the bridge on Camarillo Street, between the bridge at Caligula's Creek and Lewis. We believe that that's county road. But when people in the neighborhood call the county to complain about the potholes that are created by the bus service to the campus, the county doesn't have the road on their map. So we seem to have a jurisdictional issue here that we could use some help resolving. And thank you to Tom for reminding us that this is an issue we should put on the table with you.
Someone just figured out so we know who's responsible for fixing.
Yeah, all we need to know is whose jurisdiction is that section of road in.
Okay, yeah, that's something that we can look into. Who would you recommend? Should I work with Jake on figuring that out? All I would need to know is the streets, and I can certainly look into that.
So I can actually send you the location of the streets and work with John to get maybe a better coordinate definition of what the streets are. So we'll try to get you a solid description, and then maybe you can help us figure out whether it's quote unquote site authorities or campus or the county.
Sandy, are these streets that are in discussion? I'm sorry. Whoever has Caroline's iPhone, there seems to be an echo.
It's me, I'm trying to mute.
Okay, no worries. I'll proceed once it's muted.
So I'll follow up. I'll
Okay,
follow up with an email to pose the question with the details.
Sandy, are those streets in reference? Are they on Google Maps?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you guys can figure it out. This isn't a hard problem to solve. Just figure out whose road it is.
Yeah,
That'll take
I'll
5 minutes.
send you a Google map and show you where they are.
And
Okay,
the second,
perfect. If I may, what you can do, Sandy, that'd be very helpful is you can find which streets in particular you're talking about, and you can screenshot it on Google Maps and show it to me, and I can work with county staff and figure
Yeah,
it out.
I will do exactly that, Angel. I think
Perfect.
we have
Thank
one
you.
more question from Tom and then potentially a question from another member.
it's not a question, just a request. So we're constantly looking for funding, and we're working on grants to help us with some of our fire abatement issues. And so I just ask if you could look out on our behalf for any county funds that we can use to help pay for fire abatement. That's it. So keep your ear open. Let us know.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, give us an opportunity. We will write the grant.
And okay, I'll connect with you later about grant writing. Ventura County Community Foundation offers services in grant writing that I can refer you and connect you with.
Thank you.
Angel, I am also going to be forwarding to John all my communications with the county of Ventura. I've been in contact with them for about 6 weeks now because the street in question is on Google Maps. It is on one county map, but it's not on fire access and it's not on FEMA disaster. So I've been working with them to try to get this street identified, because in the case of a community disaster, people coming from other areas looking at their maps wouldn't even know the road is there. So I'll forward those to John so that he can work with you. Is that the best way? So get it to you and then go there. Thank you.
Right, and I do think we made an attempt, Angel, and were denied by the site authority a couple of years ago to put all of our neighborhood area on the county planning maps, but we haven't accomplished that yet. It remains an action item for us to try to make happen internally, but we're not there yet. So thank you.
Understood.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And once again, if there's any other personal inquiries that comes to mind at a later time, you guys are welcome to call the office, or you guys are more than welcome to send me an email. I hope you guys have a good rest of your meeting, have a good rest of your night. Thank you so much. And then I did see a question about what other languages. Our office helps with both English and Spanish.
Thank you very much. All right.
Absolutely.
The next item on our agenda is a special item on amenity closures. Several members of the community have raised questions about closures of some of the amenities we enjoy in the Glen. Let me first recognize Jake to give us an update on where we are today with amenity closures. Sorry, I'm not walking fast enough to bring the microphone.
Okay, regarding the fitness centers, they are open now. And the mask mandates, which Angel talked about, are in effect at this point. They are in effect at this point. And so those that are vaccinated do not have to have masks in the gyms or in the community room. That is per the mandate, okay? So everything is open, both the small gym over at Hillcrest as well as over here in the town center. Regarding the pools, we understand and we rethought about unlocking the townside pool. And so don't need to get into the history of why that was done. It was an issue last year. And so we opened those again, and in the interest of matching the budget, which we had put in the budget, that we would have the natural gas bill for January, February, March to be less based on the fact that we were not going to heat the townside pool. We moved forward with that, and we posted that the lounging area is available. If anybody really wants to go swimming, it's up to them. But we are checking the chemicals every day for both the spa and the pool. and that we have every intention of turning the heaters back on starting on April 1st.
Turn the heaters on and
On.
off.
They're off now
Okay.
Just for the,
for the spa, for the spa and the pool at the town side. Those are the ones that's the one that was closed. Okay. The Hillcrest has always been available for the entire community.
I think the other amenity that was us, we talked about briefly, but if you just state where
The dog stay. Right.
State where the dog park is, so people have it in this context.
Earlier this week, we opened the dog park after we had the fence for a good amount of time, and we had fertilized both sides a couple of times. And the exact way to move forward with it, we're looking to Brightview to assist us in that, because we thought it would come back better than it did. And some of that is with use. We're looking at other ways to address the concern about the dog parks.
I'm sorry, the fertilizer on the dog park, is it pellets?
No, it's granular.
Solid.
Okay, so that was a question from Tom about the nature of the fertilizer in the dog park. Is it pellets? And Jake replied, no, it is granular.
Gabrielle has a question.
So I have a question about the gym closures. I don't want, you want me to hold it? Oh, I'm not a random minute. So, why were the gyms closed? In the email, it said there were a few violators of the mask policy. Given the 3 sets of data, 1, the fob data, 2, the cameras that are very high quality, and 3 real-time complaints coming to DePaula in real time, so she knows who it is. Why was not other action taken, such as fines or, instead of punishing the entire community for the actions of a few?
Yeah, I think that's a question a lot of people have.
Understood. I appreciate the question. The situation is that for the past 2 months, Dave Paula and I have been dealing with this daily and sending out notifications regularly, identifying.
Is it the same people?
Some not, and so it really came down to enough is enough. It's like, if you're not going to comply, that it needs to be, how do you get the community's attention? We knew it would not be how would you say, understood or appreciated situation. And some of it has to do with that in the conversation with Mission Hills is that, how would you put it? That many times in management of the apartments, it is done more draconianly, that it is like an all or nothing kind of thing. And some of it is also that unfortunately the number of people that it affects is relatively small compared to the entire community. And so that is the action that after really 2 months of sending out notifications, that it was like, okay, we're going to close it for 2 weeks. And that's what in the conversation with Mission Hills, how it was decided. And that was in a conversation that Dave Paula and I had for the last probably month, and in that conversation, the closure was being pushed by the 60% of Mission Hills pretty hard before it was closed. I worked and said, let's send out notifications, let's do this. And the amount of time that was being spent, it was just said enough.
We have a question on this topic from Mr. McClone. It is,
Yeah, I've got some other questions, but Jake,
how can Kennedy Wilson close our, that's all in caps, amenities when their office personnel and workers have routinely been seen without their masks indoors. Should Kennedy Wilson close those offices as well? First of all, I think we all have to be aware that the amenities were sold to Kennedy Wilson multifamily with the apartments. They own them. We have the right of access only. The decision to close the amenities, thereby limit our access, in this case, to the gyms, I think maybe predominantly that was the answer, but basically, because that's the amenity that most recently got closed, was recommended by KWM and UCAM, and they acted upon that recommendation. The dog park, as we've talked about, was closed to try to rehabilitate the grass, and the pool closure was a budgeted cost savings decision.
If we have the right of access and it's in the agreement when we sold it, can they prohibit the owners from using it?
I have a question. Who is you're reading answers? Where did you get those answers that you're reading from?
I am reading the answers from my knowledge of the events and my knowledge, for example, this one comes from the ground sublease between Kennedy Wilson multifamily and the site authority.
So
that document was obtained by other members of the community and shared with me, and I am quoting that information basically from their ground sublease document.
So can they deny us right of access?
I think that's a question that you would have to take to legal authority to get a true answer to.
They can deny their right of access. I don't know that they can.
Well,
I think it's open to legal interpretation.
I want to say that you're saying you're reading answers. You are the leader of the HAC, and the answers that you're providing, I don't know if they're true or not, and I had no input. So you are answering on behalf of yourself.
I'm sorry. Yes, I am answering on behalf of my.
Anybody else on the board,
I received these questions 4 hours ago or 5 hours ago. There was not time to have consultation, Carolyn.
If you received them 4 or 5 hours ago, I don't know why you have to answer them here.
Because in an email exchange with the questioner, I gave him the right to provide questions that I said I would ask today. And in my attempt to keep this meeting somewhat on track, I provided answers which can be augmented by anyone else in this room as we go through it. So if there's something that you want to add to this answer, please do.
I don't have the questions. They haven't been given to me. And it seems like a question that this is not even a meeting. You're reading something that you wrote and something that someone else. This is kind of a weird format for a meeting. And I disagree with you reading answers that no one else on this board has seen.
I accept your criticism.
Let's add a perspective as well. We all take ourselves back, 2 years when the COVID started? Remember how we had an issue with the pools? They were going to be totally shut down, right? So denying access, there's some precedent here. And so I don't know, but it was done. And of course, we left one pool closed and paid a bunch of money for a monitor to ensure that we could comply with the rules to keep it open. So that was complying with what we thought. So I thought do we have a monitor at both? Okay, so we needed a monitor. Okay, I'll stop. I don't remember.
They own it. We have legal access to it to be our coverage. Can they shut us off from legal access?
That's a very good question.
That is a legal question that would have to go to legal authority to take the existing ground sublease and interpret it. Okay, that is where it is. I'm telling you what their ground sublease allows, gives. They have ownership. The ground sublease also includes a clause that we have access. Those things apparently are frequently in conflict. And that's where we stand today. It isn't a resolved issue. That's what I'm trying to represent with this answer.
So let me suggest this. So our CAG representative, when we get to this topic, I would like to make a motion that we take to the CAG to get a legal interpretation of the joint use agreement signed with Kennedy Wilson and our ground sublease, because those two documents, I think, maybe there's more, would tell us what can be done. We can't afford one.
We do not have control of our own budget. The only way for us to have legal representation is to form an association to do that kind of work on which we tax ourselves to do it. Thank you.
What is the cost savings per month by shutting down the small pool?
That's the next item on the agenda.
Oh, it is, okay.
So,
Then what I'm going to interject is, I do not have a legal education, legal background. I'm not an expert. But as a property owner, if I rent an apartment to an individual, a family, a couple, the man in the moon, and I've got a 10-year lease with them, and I choose to sell my building, I've either got to buy them out, convince them to move, or I can't sell my building. So if we have a valid ground sublease as homeowners, and then the site authority decided to sell this and sell that, and they have a valid lease with Kennedy Wilson, Kennedy Wilson's lease cannot affect our rights, as I know it common sense.
and your common sense is excellent, except your ground sublease contradicts that common sense.
Sandy, you can't be telling people that.
So when I read my personal ground sublease, it tells me that the site authority has the right to not develop something, to take an amenity away, to make any change they want to make. That's what's in my personal ground sublease. I take that to say that they have the right to make any change they want to make.
And I will continue to make my statement that you shouldn't be interpreting it.
Well, I can interpret my ground sublease, and I'm telling you what mine says and the way I read my ground sub.
Microphone to people at home, and they respect your opinion. And I don't think you should be doing that, and that's the end. I'm not saying anything.
I understand where we are. Can we move forward from this one? Okay, so what I wanted to do at this point was give Malia an opportunity to ask a question that she's raised on the cost of pool.
Yeah, let me be clear that I did not raise this question, but Toby was just about to ask it, as have many other residents of the Glen. And what their question is by shutting off the heater for the pool, the townside pool, what are our cost savings per month by doing that? For all 3 months or
$1,500 per month. Okay. $1,500 a month, $4,500 for the quarter.
So Toby, please ask the next logical question.
I don't know, he was just telling, Jake was just saying how.
So I recognize Toby.
The question specifically that I asked was, what is the monthly savings for shutting down the small pool and spa? Many people use the spa therapeutically. It's warm water. Many people like to swim. That is an amenity that I agreed to pay for when I signed my ground sublease. So if you're saving $1,500 per month, That's $4,500. I highly suggest you take into consideration the $10,000 you set aside in the budget as a contingency, and you stop funding movies and candy giveaways and gift certificates and clown suits and any other thing that came within that budget. Tonight, for those people who are at home and people who see this recording, I'm going to start posting all the things that were purchased with your CAM money that are not part of the ground sublease. There's no reason to be funding a social club and a garden club and mediation when there is no mediation in the ground sublease. The community garden has existed for a decade without funding. You want to fund it, you want to expand it, and there will never be any way that a majority of people in this community can participate. There are 14 spaces and over 1,000 individuals. Figure out why you're going to be giving them $8,500 to expand at a minimum. Tell me why you are funding movie nights for a limited number of families, why you are giving away candy and toys and bouncy balls. I think I've made my point. I do not think that Jake Friesen, as a trustee of our maintenance rents, has the authority to reimburse people for things that are not utilities, not maintenance, not repairs, and not improvements. You shut down a pool that is a valid amenity to save $4,500 and then throw away $8,500 somewhere else. Thank you very much.
So the question that I had was, what is the per monthly cost of adding this item back into the budget in the next year that we could take to the next bag meeting and ask be reinstated in a budget?
Can't hear you. Silent movie?
Are we good? Are we back on?
Can you hear us, Jen? Wave if you can hear.
We can hear you.
Ah, excellent. Thank you. We can proceed. Appreciate the input.
What happened?
I hit a button that I wasn't supposed to hit when I picked it up from Toby. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is,
We wanted you to take it back to the bag.
right, so adding back the monthly cost of heating the pool for the 3 months in the winter where we don't heat the small pool. I believe I hear at least one yes. Are you a yes?
I say, pull it from somewhere else. I'm not going to say increase our CAM fees. We're already spending money on other things.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't make a decision, like, right here.
I agree, if we can find an offset,
Find an offset. That's what they do in Congress.
And, but at the same time, if we turn it back on, can we monitor to see what the actual fuel usage is? If there's more noise than people?
fair question.
Let me tell you, there are a lot of people.
I know that the heater has been turned off every year for a long time.
It's
Yes,
only been the last 2 years.
Yeah.
As of 2018, I was, well, in January.
Yeah.
At least 2018. not
It was
2019.
warm.
Yes, I was in the spa.
okay, the situation is that in the conversations with, on the bag, the conversation is where can you have some cuts? We're looking at it that in the winter, the pools get the least amount of use. And so, you know, the thing that is true is it may be good to figure out over at the Hillcrest how many people are actually using it. And then say, well, if we divide that by 2, it doesn't really make sense. I know there are those individuals who have health needs. And I know in the conversation with Mission Hills is that there are many communities where the pools are closed, apartment communities where they've closed the pools from October to April. And in our conversation, that was the beginning. That's where we started. And Mission Hills came back and said, no, they wanted one pool open. And so it was determined in conversation with them and the bag that it would be the Hillcrest. And so that is how that came about, and that's how we budgeted it. Okay, so here we are now, and we can talk about it, you know, and at the same time, it's like, does it make sense for yes, I know everybody's paying for some small group, whether that's the dog lovers or whether that's the gardeners or whether that is, you know, the playground people or whatever, and the pools have their group too. I think the thing to consider here is that the amenity, there is an amenity available, you know, and if there is a question of the equalness of the sides of the community, that is something that from a budget standpoint, we weren't looking at, you know, and so it's like, I think that's something to bring to the bag and say, is there a balance here? And, you know, we will take it back and ask the Mission Hills, their take on it too, because that was kind of the reason we used that the larger pool was that was in consultation was saying, well, that's the one that they would prefer to keep open. So that's where it goes. And I hope you people can appreciate that in the mix that we are with the 60% of Mission Hills bringing forth requests and what we're negotiating with, that comes both. I think that's something that you can bring to the CAG as well as to BAG.
So going forward, they're gonna own 32 acres, are they gonna be able to stop all of the roofing?
They will be 70% of the doors when the 32 acres are built.
A scary spot. Can we just turn on the spot for the people who want to, I'm against, I mean, it doesn't matter what I'm for or against. I know people want to spot.
So
Is that separate or is that joint to the pool?
At this time, it's going to the pool. Because it's like that way we're either turning on the gas or we're not turning on the gas.
So what I'm hearing is there's a desire for offsets. There's a desire for simply adding it back. Why don't I take that representation of what I'm hearing in the room?
Can we turn it off for the winter and then come April, turn it back on and heat it to an actual temperature?
You're speaking my language, but we.
Use them even in the summer, so.
But
I would have to see them on all winter.
You had a hand up.
Take out all of them, so you can heat them properly.
Okay, we had, I'm recognizing. Say it.
My name is Shane, and I just have a quick question. Is there any way to finagle the temperatures if said pool and spa gets turn back on? Could you lower the pool temperature even though they're connected to 61 degrees instead of 60, so it's still on, using less gas because it's in January? If you're not comfortable with the temperature it's even set at, set it extremely low so the gas is still provided, so the hot tub could be heated to 101, 102, 103, etc. So there could be a middle ground. We choose less because the pool would take exponentially more natural gas to heat to a temperature, so it could cost save and you would still get your hot tub.
I think we have to thank the mathematician in the room for an excellent suggestion.
Wait, is there one heater or two? So one for the spa, one for the pool. So you turn the spa heater on, the water. Turn it on, and then when 4,500 over, you know, when you're sending the bill back there, when that's there.
Yeah.
I tried that.
Two spas and no pools, but don't turn on the gas because it's not in the budget, not in the budget.
Okay, so I think we're talking about a way forward to next year's budget. Let's talk about that. I don't want to do something planfully that puts us over budget this year. I agree with Carolyn on that issue. I would like us to just keep marching down the road we're marching for this year and do something in next year's budget that represents the legitimate concerns of people in the neighborhood.
I have been auditing the costs of the social club and the garden club. The money you have set aside for them right now has not been spent. If you turn on the pools, the spa, the way it's supposed to be, follow the gentleman's advice of turning the pool to a lower temperature, you'll still save it, but you have this amount of money, $4,500 available in that $10,000 contingency fund. You already have the money. The pool's more important than handing out candy.
To you, it's more.
And let me just be clear, because I agree with what you're saying, Tony, since they did increase the social committee budget, I agree that makes sense to open up an amenity or heat an amenity that can serve more people in the community. I just want to be clear, we're not paying for candy. Everything that we give out is donated. So the only thing that has been paid for thus far has been the movies. So I just want to be clear about that.
I have receipts for hundreds of dollars worth of toys and balloons and bouncy balls.
Or balloons or bouncy, anything. I want to know.
All right, can we,
Jake to address the receipts for the bouncy balls, please, and the candy.
Yeah, we'd like to know where this comes.
The situation is that at the end of the fiscal year last year in June, there was about $1,200 that was left. And the social committee they presented items that they wanted to use. And that included some candies anticipated for Halloween based on what had happened during COVID. And so that's what they did. And we bought those before the end of the fiscal year last year and gave them to Maisha, who is the one that was in charge of the social committee. And my understanding is that those were used this year at Halloween to do various tricks and things. So Toby is correct that there were amounts of money and there were various things that were requested, which included some colored paper and ink and there were a couple of carts, and those were all considered part of the social committee for last year. And so those were purchased and those were reimbursed accordingly based on last year's budget.
My understanding was that we were using the rest of those funds to purchase items that we could use again and again and again year over year. I didn't know that they were going to be disposed by. So that's my fault.
Yeah, some of them were, it was a mix.
No, I need to respond. This is important. Malia is 100% correct. It was clearly stated in the minutes of the March meeting that because of COVID, there were no meetings, there were no expenses, and there would be a budget overage. It was clearly stated by the social club that they would buy things that they could use in the future, which they did at the end of June. Those things included colored paper tambourines, white paper tambourines, sign holders, $400 with the sign holder, whatever, and 2 industrial type carts that you wheel things around with. I don't have any objections to the paper, the sign holders. I don't understand why they needed to buy 2 carts. That is the end of the expenses that Malia speaks of. The candy was all purchased in October, and the toys were purchased in October. And I see other receipts from the previous year for gift certificates. And the interesting thing about gift certificates, it came with an attached letter stating that the company, who is a very responsible community member, was willing to donate those gift certificates. But he was essentially told, we have the money, we're going to reimburse you. So he offered to give a small amount of gift certificates without any type of restriction. It was insisted that they would pay for them because they have money, and including the original tiny cost of the gift certificate, they added a tip to the bill. What kind of nonsense is this? I don't care if it's $1 or $1 million. You don't spend money that isn't yours. You don't spend money that's held in trust for maintenance, utilities, repairs, and replacements on candy bars or wieners or anything else. So Malia is correct. The things that they purchased at year end that didn't get billed until July, for the most part, they were responsible items. I don't understand why we bought 2 carts for hauling things around. Thank you.
Now I'd like to proceed with the meeting because we're at an hour and a half plus, and we are not through enough of our agenda. It's now time for committee reports.
Yes. So a couple of fun things for the month of March. We are going to have, hold on, all of my screens got messed up, so I'm going to apologize. So for the month of March, they do have this virtual Disney walk. I'm trying to get to the top of my page. And you can join this group. It's called Virtual Walking Challenge group on Nextdoor. You log the miles that you walk. The first person to reach 75 miles in March will be crowned the winner. So if you are not on Nextdoor, you can reach out to Janice Ben. Her email is janiceba@outlook.com to sign up. And I will drop her email address into the chat after I'm done with my update. Additionally, on March 26th, we will have a Fly a Kite Day for the community. This will be done up by the water towers. That way people all over the Glen can watch them anywhere in our community. They're asking for people that are interested to come and fly a kite or just admire the amazing kites and flyers. You can sign up to be part of those festivities but by, again, reaching out to Janice. So again, I will drop her email address into the chat.
What day?
It is March 26th. I don't know I don't have any details about time, but I'm sure she can post something to Nextdoor to make all of those details available to everybody. And then finally, I guess coming up this Saturday, the 19th, they are off, the CSUCI is offering an opportunity to the community to download an app called iNaturalist. I will also drop that in chat. And you can go down and be part of their annual BioBlitz. The blurb here indicates CSI students of all majors and members of the community are invited to wander around campus anytime between 10 and 3 p.m. this Saturday and take photos of any plants, flowers, fungi, insects, birds, and or trees that catch their eye. The iNaturalist app will identify what you've just seen and upload it to their global citizen science database of plants, flowers, fungi, trees, insects, and animals found on and around the CSUCI campus and the world. So I'll drop all of that information into the chat, but we have some fun, free items coming up.
Okay, so the landscape committee has not had a meeting since our last HAC meeting. I had a meeting tentatively scheduled with the landscape committee to review the new and improved plant palette for phase 2. It wasn't quite ready, and our guest of honor, who is the Brightview irrigation, what's her title? Designer, wasn't available. We thought she was, but she wasn't. So I'm going to try and reschedule this week. We have some urgency to settling up on the plant palettes, at least internally within the community, because then Jake has to take it to the county and work out some other issues and so forth. So planning to have that this upcoming week. And the point of having the landscape committee look at it is to provide suggestions, recommendations. I don't know if the HAC wants to see it after the landscape committee has their thoughts, but that's the process right now. There are some other follow-up issues. Some of us on the landscape committee are dealing with certain owners on certain issues. In terms of activity for the month, last month there were 17 work orders. This month there were 25 work orders. However, 17 out of the 25 were related to trees, either trimming, cutting them down, or replanting. So that left a fairly low number of work orders from residents who had issues with shrub trimming and so forth. Now that's just active work orders opened in January. There are still some outstanding work orders. We have some residents here who have them from prior months. I don't have that data, but we do need to stay on top of those and get those closed as soon as we can. So not an unusual month from my perspective of work orders if you look at the big picture of 272 homes in the community. That's it.
I would follow up on those work orders. It's my understanding that if an owner has a question or an issue with landscaping, they're supposed to file a work order with Jake. Process, right? Right, that's true.
Okay.
And then that way the landscaping committee can track it and we can figure out what's going on. That's the way it's supposed to work, right? But I found out today that we have some owners that are communicating directly with Brightview, and Brightview is responding to them. And I don't want to say, you know, anybody's name, but that is happening and it has been happening. And I don't know why that's happening. Are you, I mean, now you're aware of it now.
That the situation is that the situation is that as we have done some of the refurbishing moving forward in various areas, with the intention that it is the majority of it is reimbursed from the refurbishing projects phase 2 and 3, and we keep track of those monies, that we will work with Brightview and facilitate communication between the two owners, the owner and Brightview. I have participated in a couple of meetings with the parties in question, and we've gone back and forth, and where we are now is the plants that we are taking out of the plant palette are the ones that this particular owner would like to have. And that is something that we have found they do not grow well here. And so that is the conversation. And so they have had back and forth, probably going on 3 months right now. And so that I'm always copied on it, and I'm very aware of the communications between them. Otherwise, I would be going to meetings regularly with this particular owner.
So that owner just gets, it's a special property,
Yeah.
or is it like
No,
a test property, or?
They are in our face.
So let me add to it. I think the issue is we just want to make sure there's a policy on how Brightview resources are used, that you're ensuring there's equal prioritization.
Understood.
Across the community. So we need to make sure homeowners are reminded not to do like I used to do and give a 6-pack a year to the gardeners to try and influence their work. And instead,
No.
all owner landscapers should come there and hopefully for work orders, and then you can manage it from there. We just want to make sure there's fairness, equal service to all residents.
Right. That's my concern. And now you just raised another concern, because you said some plants in the plant palette that we chose, or Brightview helped us choose, do not grow well here. But shouldn't Brightview know that before they suggest the plants for the plant palette?
Well, maybe there are situations where they could have chosen better, but the point is, if the plants don't make it, it's not at our cost.
For the moment, and it has to be within the year.
Okay.
Which is my question, when is the 1-year anniversary of the phase 1? I think it's important to know.
When did phase 1 start? I think you were chair.
April, right? I think we're coming up on a year.
Just because we need to know what's thriving, what's not thriving. I think there's been areas that have had very dismal response, and other areas where you question what was done wrong, and then other areas that are right. So I think it's important to
Yeah. Yeah, I really, and maybe you think I'm wrong, but I really think if Brightview is suggesting a palette for us, that they should know that the plants are going to thrive here. And if they don't thrive here, maybe they're not doing the foundational soil preparation that they need to do. But to wait a year and things are not thriving, well.
There's a lot that looks really good. Okay.
Right.
And the ones that are in question, those are the ones that we've gotten work orders on, and we're addressing.
So let me add, for those of you who know plants well, I do not, who are on the landscape committee, come with your ideas. We're looking at the next version of the palette. If you think things aren't going to work, throwing your 2 cents.
We did that. We had somebody who knew, and she was completely ignored. I'm not going to.
Yeah. The designer we have now, is it the same one from a year ago? Or is it a different one?
Designer, it's different now.
So we have a new designer.
From Brightview, but that's part of what we're paying them for, is to give us that knowledge.
And they will. They are.
All I'm saying is we're paying for expertise. Hopefully, the new
designer.
Do they have liability insurance if they advise us wrong? Have to repay for it?
We need to move forward, but one last comment. Guys, one last comment on this topic.
I just had a quick question. I've talked to Brightview a few times for safety issues though. When they're in the neighborhood, I don't always have the time to submit a proper, and it was a safety hazard. We had bougainvillea with the big thorns. My daughter was grabbing them, and I asked them to trim that back. I think there should be some kind of contingency. If there's an immediate safety hazard, you don't have to go. If they're at your house cutting right there and they missed it, which they did.
I think there's reasonable.
Perfect.
You guys are, it's gonna take 10 seconds to clip a couple things, sure. But if it's like, hey, this needs to be pulled out.
Okay.
So I think you.
We have several questions in the chat. I'm just going to read them. Would you please explain why it is that we need a landscape committee? What is their job in contrast to Jake's role as CAM manager?
Yeah, that's a good question.
The committee in general, is to get a representative group from the community to provide input and thoughts on landscaping issues. So this is community stuff.
I've been on this train since the beginning. I want every viable suggestion be ignored. Or remark or anything. I just not.
Okay, I can't.
Wait, we didn't hear Gabriel. We couldn't hear it all. Say again, please.
Come over here and talk. I've been on the committee since the beginning, and every suggestion has been ignored, or every expertise or the input has been ignored. When somebody on the committee has said, this is not going to thrive here, this is not going to work here, ignored. When
Yeah.
somebody said, this is not, it was ignored. So in the end, and then in the end, they ended up doing what they want. Some of it is successful, a lot of it is not. And we're getting ready to go into round 2, which is very expensive.
So
Yes.
I've been chair since, I don't know, when were we at? August, September, October. So,
No, June.
really?
Because July,
I didn't know that. Okay, the only issue I've taken to the committee so far has been the decorative rock. The committee voted, came to the HAC, our input came in, and you weren't ignored. So that's an example of something that I think works, kind of.
Wow, it sure sounds like there are a few people that have influence and others do not. I was offered a pallet by Jake. I was shown pictures. I replied in kind with pictures. I was told okay, and now nothing. So I'm very disappointed in this group in terms of this landscaping committee, because it seems like it's just a way to stymie the whole process.
well, I don't understand why you were given a plant palette and allowed to choose and you were ignored. And we have a homeowner who is getting a plant palette of their choosing, even though it's no longer on the plant palette. I don't understand why. I don't know if he's speaking right now.
Yeah, I don't.
Is that equitable? That doesn't sound like equity to me.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't help this.
I wasn't given a plant palette. The person speaking is Mary Walzer.
That's correct. And I am not hiding anything about that, Sandy. Did you need me to say anything more with regard to who I am? Okay, good.
I was responding to a person in the room who could not see your name on the screen. That's all.
Okay, good to see you, Mary. Okay, so, okay,
We need to move on.
so we're gonna move on. Okay, so
Oh,
what,
that's so great. That's what you guys do. You don't address, you don't answer, and then when it comes to when the rubber meets the road, you go, let's move on. Awesome.
nice, Mary. Are you gonna just interrupt?
If I have to, yes.
Okay. Just go on.
So I think, can this consensus and this question that's been raised by 2 people go back to the landscaping committee for review?
All
I'll call Mary. I'll talk to her. I want to know about the pallet she got.
I don't know that situation. I haven't been here long enough, but all I can say is, as the current chair, I will do my best to get input from the members who have volunteered to join the committee, take their input, give it valid consideration.
I don't think you're ignoring us.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, if people think the landscape committee is a waste of time,
Tom, I have a question. So
Tom
we
spends
spend
a
a
lot
lot of time out there trying to get stuff done.
I think there needs to be some oversight.
Irrigation issues, other issues, working on Toby's stuff. It's amazing. We spend a lot
There
of
needs to
time.
be oversight by the committee, for sure. That's why the committee exists.
Jake, are you, because I remember before we started phase 1 of the landscaping project, you had started emailing like spreadsheets to everybody so they would know what kind of plants they were getting and how much of each of them. Is that not happening anymore?
That was done for the phase 1.
Right.
And now what we're doing is moving into phase 2 and trying to determine what we can do to meet the fire requirements.
Okay.
And so that is what we're doing. The plant palette that was given to Tom is revised that takes the plants and goes from 0 to 5 feet, which is defensible space, and from 5 to 30 feet. And there are different requirements and allowances.
Right,
And-
what I'm saying is you're still gonna do the same thing, right?
Right,
You're still-
for sure,
So
yeah.
people, I don't know why there's what I'm hearing, and I don't know that maybe I'm not hearing correctly, what it sounds to me is that people are saying that it's being chosen for them and they're not having any input on the process, correct? That is not the way it happened in phase one when I was on the landscape committee. They were sent, they were advised what they were going to get. They were allowed time to make requests for changes. So I don't, this is, I'm just trying to understand, because it sounds like some people. Oh, okay.
Mary's talking about something in there.
Malia, that, my understanding, the meeting I had briefly with Brightview, that same process will be used this time.
Yeah.
A template, everyone will see what's intended for their plot. They will have an opportunity to meet with Brightview. They're gonna have an office or time to go in and say, hey, can we tweak this, tweak that? And so you'll know what should be planted on your parcel.
Yeah, because my point was, I felt like the process was very flexible in terms of, I don't really like that, I like a little bit more color, and they were very accommodating in coming back to me with options,
So it should be a lot like phase one.
Yeah.
With a different palette, some other fire restrictions we gotta consider.
They can't put some.
Now we have potentially decorative rock. There may be two choices. I don't know how that's gonna work.
Okay, we need to move on to the garden committee report, please.
Very quickly, so we have one, soon to be two available plots. The second plot has not become available yet, but it's in the works. The first plot has become available and we are in discussions on how to use it, whether to assign it to someone on the next person on the wait list and they get it in perpetuity, or to put it into rotation so the next person on the wait list gets it, but they get it for a 2 or 3 year term. So then in 2 or 3 years, somebody else gets it and we rotate them out. But I would like to see it, a few dollars from our budget be put into cleaning up the plot and then sectioning off the plot into subparticles or subparticles where it's open to the community to come in and try their hand at putting 1 or 2 plants into food plants into the ground and try their hand at gardening while they wait on the wait list. So that would be a true community plot that is available to all while there is space available. That is something that we are going to be discussing going forward. So, and then we anticipate a second plot becoming available at the beginning of the month. So.
Question in the chat. How are you going to share the community partners?
No, it would be where the community could come in and plant their plant in their little, one plot, divided up into 9 things. So we're still only getting 9 people into one plot, one small plot. But we'll be there to keep, we're still working on it. This plot just became available last week. So we are still trying to figure out the best way to move forward. So we can have a more progressive view going forward and not keep doing the same issues.
Okay.
Is there enough space for 270 doors?
No, of course not. And we would love for Kennedy Wilson to drop $40,000 into our pocket so we could build a true community garden. One large enclosure would be lovely, but you know, or even 70% of $40,000 would be lovely. But so no, there is not. Just like there's not.
So, but I would like to encourage.
Barbecues for 2,000 people.
So I'd
Sorry to
like-
jump in. It's hard to hear the side conversations.
Patrick, please raise your hand if you wish to be recognized. I would like to just make one observation. I suggest everyone in the community
Start taking some wonderful walks in our beautiful community and look for land that we could repurpose and effectively use to expand our gardening opportunities in the community so that a higher percentage of the population that wants to garden could garden. And we think about how we become water wise more than we are now. The current garden uses drip irrigation and is pretty efficient for most of the gardeners. But let's think about it. There are all kinds of other ways that are even more water wise than drip irrigation. We live in a perpetual drought and we need to start thinking about those things. Patrick, your question.
I just said,
Patrick?
again, hey, I couldn't hear Gabriel. She needs the microphone. I couldn't hear her.
I apologize. All right, we're moving now on to the finance and budget. Kevin, are you out there? Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining.
Noodle.
Time for the finance committee report. The things that I thought we needed to talk with is the budget update. Would you like to address where we are on budget?
Yeah, I think we're, as far as I know, waiting for a final review from Jake, a final version. We've gone over it twice now. We had the initial proposals from UG-CAM, and we did our best to work on trimming that up and save the community from rising CAM fees. You know, there was a lot of, you know, one-time expenditures related to COVID in the last 2 years. And there's a lot of infrastructure expenditures that are starting to add up as our community gets a little bit older. But we encourage Jake to take those to, you know, if those are reserve items, if the maintenance was of reserve items, to charge those against the reserve items and to not increase our operating budget due to the maintenance of reserve items. So I think that was a big conversation, and I think Jake was in agreement. I hope that the site authority also agrees with us so that we don't raise our CAM fees to take care of reserve items on a maintenance standpoint, because that's why they're in the reserve. That's why we put money there for those items. So, you know, we go line by line over it with Jake. Unfortunately, there are still rising costs, as we all hear on the radio every day. Inflation is real. Trash costs and other things are continuing to go up. So we still are expecting our CAM fees to raise by about the inflation rate this year, hopefully.
Right. So I
Andy,
do want to raise one other issue. We did have a surprise addition to our budget from facilities at CSU CI in terms of costs being transferred to us that had never been in our budget before. They looked at the cost of reading meters from Cam Rosa, and they were transferring the cost to us of doing meter reads. Partnering with Kennedy Wilson Multifamily, we were able to push back on what was a $30,000 additional cost and hopefully have it reduced to $12,500. But again, this is a particularly arcane piece of expenditure, which is being shifted to us in this budget.
What is that for?
Okay, so there are water meters that exist that have.
Let me jump in. Sandy,
Okay.
water meters are read electronically. I get the water meter reports occasionally. It takes no effort at all. They can read them every day. They don't have to walk out. They don't have to lift lids. We only have 2 freaking meters.
Well,
$12,000. I'm sorry for the freaking. Hopefully that's nice.
No. So
That's ludicrous.
we continue to push back on the $12,000 because.
Continue to push back. They say 30 and you.
That's right. I've said my piece. I think it's totally crazy, and that's my piece.
Okay.
times he just bitched about candy bars and $4,000 for the pool, and we're talking about $30,000 that could keep the pools open for, let's do the math now, how many years? That's ridiculous. Why are we paying that?
And where did that come from? Where's the writing? Where's the writing? Where's the
The
writing?
bill was a transfer of costs from CSU CI facilities to us for quote unquote services that we receive.
Where's the writing, Sandy? Where's the writing where they transferred it to us?
And yeah, and a memo to Jake. A memo to
I
Jake.
really want to see that before we just say, oh, yeah, that's great. Why
No,
not?
nobody, Carolyn, no one said, oh, oh, yeah, that's great. We put our heads together and tried to go fight it.
And let me add, I mean, the site authority does a bunch of stuff. This is a small issue. Meter reading and allocating water. I mean,
Okay.
I don't get it.
We agree.
Okay, we have a question in the chat. It says, what is the reason for shifting costs to the community? That does not make sense.
Well, the site authority and the university has the right to transfer any legitimate cost that they can justify for the operation of our community to us, because we are supposed to be cost neutral to them. All right, so I believe we will continue to fight this one going forward in the bag. I take your indignation for my raising it as justification to go back and make yet again louder noise than Kevin and I already have in the bag about this issue. This is one of several things kind of like this over the last several years. And I think it's an issue, John, that we need to start exploring and bringing you up to speed on. And I really am grateful for your presence so that we can begin to address the issues and have some support.
Can we, at least the people, can you share that information with us? Can you share it, Jake, with a memo or whatever, and how they calculated it? I'd like to know.
We've got it how they calculate it. And so we can.
Seriously, it's $12,000 a year?
No,
Yes,
I heard
yes.
12,000 for us.
It is 12,000.
$1,000 a month to read 2 meters.
Right.
Right.
I will do it for 500. I'll do it for 200.
I'll do it for 100.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's where we are.
Okay, so
So
that's
the information.
just want to give you kind of a, yeah, just want to give you some flavor. to the-
I don't know the answer, but I suspect I could.
Okay, so John's going to look at it.
And I also, I'm sorry, I've got to add beyond the meter though. So we're going down a slippery slope here. So if we're paying for some facilities person to read a meter and they're going to charge us, are we going to pay for this gentleman? I'm sure he's quite good, but are they going to start charging us for him?
They charge
Is
us
that where
for
we're
the
going?
costs and everything, and then we have to pay for all of our taxes.
We need to get off the ticky tack stuff and start and paying attention to this important stuff.
So folks, I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours since the beginning of July on these very topics. I believe that there's a very important conversation to be had. I have been amassing the data to have that conversation. The finance committee of this group has worked hundreds and hundreds of hours. Tom and Kevin from inside the HAC are on the finance committee with me. We have some outside people who prefer to remain anonymous who are on the group. We are all working very hard on several financial issues. I have a question out to the rest of the finance committee for the right to go public on part of it. I don't have everybody's agreement yet. I hope by next month I have it, and we'll be able to lay some numbers on the table and begin to have the conversation.
Thank you.
It is
I am not sure we have the leverage to get to the positive result we would all like, but at least the numbers speak very loudly about how we got to where we are. And that's what needs to be addressed. So as we work through the budget, we continue to try to be mindful to look at what we are currently responsible for. And under my ground sublease, I know that I am personally responsible for my share of this under my ground sublease. And the thing that you need to be aware, everyone in this room and on Zoom needs to be aware of, is that we have zero decision-making authority on any of these issues. We have the right to offer our opinion and advice. We have the right to yell and scream politely. At least I feel we have to do it politely. Not everyone would agree with me on that, but I think that's important. And that sets of conversations that we need to put in place have to frankly deal with our lack of agency around this whole issue. Okay, that really is the crux. Our lack of agency around the decision-making that deals with the management of our neighborhood, because we are not in control. You're standing and talking to an advisory committee, not to a decision-making governmental body. And I think one of the largest misapprehensions on the part of residents of the neighborhood is they think the HAC is a decision-making body, and we absolutely are not. Sorry, you get my sermon. I apologize for. Okay. Okay, Kevin, you got a finance committee question?
Well, no, it's not for him. Is Kevin, we finished?
Okay. I think so.
We may have cut him off.
Yeah, I'm
Kevin-
happy to be done.
So we had a discussion a while back about issues going to the site authority board. There is one that popped out in front of me as I went through the monthly financials, and I'd like to bring it up again. We haven't received any reserve accounting for 4 months now. It's unacceptable. And we had asked that be moved over to the Yardi system so we could get current accounting, see the detail, and it still hasn't happened. And right now it's been 4 months and we've seen no updated reserve accounting. So I think that issue needs to be.
And in addition to no updated reserve accountings, the annual audits for the finance authority, the site authority, the statement of indebtedness report, none of those things have been updated on the website.
Okay. How do we bring that issue?
Oh, I will add it to the list. I believe that issue is coming later in the agenda if anybody's still here.
When is the Saturday 30 go back in person? Sorry? The Saturday 30 meetings, when do they return to in-person meetings?
I don't think that's my decision to make.
I just have to eat more.
I have some questions in the chat. Are all of the HAC members privy to the knowledge that Sandy has regarding bag decisions?
Oh, only 2 members of the HAC sit on the bag. Kevin Olson and I are the current representatives. That changes over time. I guess Tom and I used to do it way back when. Tom and Kevin did it for a while. I think they were partnered at some point, maybe not. I don't know who else has done it, but yes. Oh, Chris Williamson did it for a while.
Okay, another question. When you go to the site authority, are you going as Tom yourself or as the representative of the homeowners?
When we go to the site authority, we either represent ourselves individually or if the HAC has approved the letter that we're going to read, we go as representatives of the HAC.
How much money are we collecting as interest on reserve funds?
That's an excellent question, and we do not know the answer. And it is not for lack of asking.
I think the answer is zero.
I hear,
The answer is zero, just say it.
no, I hear rumors that there is some small amount.
Is it added back into our budget?
I haven't seen an audit. I don't know.
No, but you said you were doing a budget, so do you see an interest that's added back into our budget? So zero.
I don't know.
Okay. So
I mean,
it's all right.
Do the
No.
homeowners get to see this budget before it's approved? I mean, you and Kevin are working on this.
So
See it?
my next question is, would the HAC like to host a budget workshop in March? If we can get permission to share the draft budget in March, would you like to host a budget workshop? All right, I will ask for permission and put that on the CAG agenda.
Let me put a caveat in. We need to have some understanding. We all meet and have ideas whether or not they'll be considered, because Jake is head of the bag. And if it's like, you guys can talk all you want, but we're too far along and it's not gonna make a difference. So-
Yeah. Well, so I view a budget workshop as a chance for everybody to understand how the system currently works and to raise questions. I think we have a lot of folks who don't have any clue how the budgeting process that we participate in actually works and what the numbers look like. And I think putting that information out in public is always good.
Can I make one suggestion? If we did hold this meeting in March, to do a Q and no A, let everybody discuss it, hear the questions, your committee can talk about it, come out with all the answers after your proposal, so it's not instant. So it's not that you're hiding anything, but this meeting's gone on for 3 hours. A budget meeting will go on far longer when we're talking about pennies.
Well, I would propose to give people a sense of what it is. I'm not sure a line item review of the budget could be done in that time with a large group of people. But we can discuss that. Okay, where are we? I've lost it. I admit to having lost it at this point. All right. There is a question from Patrick that we need to address in this section. It is, where is the Rules Committee? They were so prominent in the past 2 years, and now poof, they have disappeared. Has the Rules Committee been disbanded? If so, have the new rules by Tom been disbanded too? What happened is that the HAC basically constituted itself last summer as a committee of the whole to work on revisions to the rules. Late last fall, we held a pre-meeting planning vote as an HAC on proceeding with the rules, and the results were 2-2 with 1 abstention. In this case, the negative wins, and we are not at this point proceeding with rules because all ties go to the negative side. Okay. We're now at the Community Advisory Group and Site Authority, and this would be Maria's section. So I guess I would encourage you to go look at the online posting of the last meeting to see what happened in the CAG. I have a couple of issues that I would like us to send back to the CAG. And the first is, now I've lost where I was going. Sorry about that, guys. I know. All right, Tom has an issue while he's doing his.
So-
I'll do mine.
I have 3 or 4 suggested topics for the CAG. One is that we just talked about a few minutes ago. We need to go back to the CAG and ask them, are they willing to consider moving reserve accounting to the RD system? We've raised the issue and it needs to be brought up again because the results right now are poor. So that's one issue. Secondly, the town hall for the 32-acre project a few months ago, to me, was very enlightening. And among other things, there's a commitment in that plan, the last version that was posted online, for Kennedy Wilson multifamily development to put in 6 parks, 3.5 acres, and to expand the big community park. So I would like to ask that Kennedy Wilson multifamily development elaborate on what amenities they're going to be putting into those 6 parks. Maybe a small garden, maybe a bench, maybe a swing set, and maybe most importantly, what are they going to commit to for the large community park?
So, I think actually moving the reserve accounting to Darby is a bag issue. And I'm happy to take that back to the bag and yell and scream.
Okay.
On that one, because what the CAG has done with all financial issues is refer them back to the bag on a routine basis.
Okay, fine.
Then on community-wide park development, I would like us to go back to the CAG with a request that we add a representative of Kennedy Wilson multifamily to the CAG so that they become the agency where we can begin to engage in what Kevin has suggested we're already behind on, which is long-range planning on the issue of park development in our neighborhood. And I think we need a representative of Kennedy Wilson multifamily development on that because they are distinctly a different group than Kennedy Wilson multifamily managing the existing apartments.
We have several questions in the chat. This was a little bit ago. Wow, Sandy, that means we have a big problem. You are making these decisions. I have heard this BS. I'm not reading that out loud. I'm not reading that out loud. Hello, we are not an educational institute. We aren't paying big bucks. Wow, how can you say about finance if you do not know?
All right, let's just simply continue. All right, is there any the other issue underneath the CAG kind of general heading that I wanted to address, because this is a site authority and CAG issue. What are the topics to letters to the site authority for the February 28th meeting that we wish to engage in as an HAC?
Let me go back to the CAG for a second. So there was one issue we talked about earlier. I'd still like to pursue it. I'd like to ask the site authority to give us a legal opinion on their opinion, which we can take or not take, on how amenities can be accessed by us, and get at least their opinion, because quite honestly, I don't think we're ever going to come up with money to pay for a lawyer to do that for us. So we should at least start there and get their opinion. That's what I don't see a downside to it.
No, I put it on the list. It's a reasonable question to ask.
Okay, sorry.
So letters to the site authority. I suggested in emails to members of the HAC that potentially we could do multiple letters to this meeting and coordinate what those letters are as an HAC project. Is there any interest in doing that on the HAC?
I don't know what you mean by that.
So we would pick 3 topics or something like that. We would write 3 letters and 3 different members of the HAC would present, one presenting each letter to the site authority. For example, a topic could be we have an outstanding list of requests to the site authority that have not been fulfilled. They date from Chris Williamson. I repeated them. He repeated them twice. I repeated them at the August meeting of the HAC. Finance Committee has actually done work on those items and have updates to the information to provide more detailed information in each of the case. So we would produce a letter that would then become public to everyone, because I think it should, that basically includes some of the basic financial data about Cam Rosa, recycled water infrastructure costs, and needing reimbursement back for 32-acre costs related to that we have already paid as a neighborhood. Looking at
I mean, Sandy, you summarized.
I
talking
about details and talking about the purpose. So the purpose of
So the purpose is to raise issues to the level of the site authority board so that they will get attention from staff below.
But people can do that as an individual. They can go to the site authority, right?
We can. I think it is more meaningful to go as an HAC.
Can I ask if they have never responded once in the past? What's going to give it meaning now? I mean, they habitually disrespect any request coming from the HAC.
Not totally.
Really?
Mostly.
Give me an example.
You are 95% accurate and 5% not.
Okay, okay.
The site authority is our main public way of speaking. It's recorded, it goes to everyone who wants to see it in the public. It worked very well when I first moved here. They started putting time limits on things because there were too many people showing up with suggestions or complaints. So I would like to offer to you that if you want to have these letters, it's very wise what you're doing. If you have 3 topics, you get 1, he gets 2, she gets 3. Be happy to give me number 4, and I'll find a bunch of other people, because the only response we ever had from the site authority is when 17 of us walked in there and told Constantine, we all have something to say. That was the only time we ever got a valid response. So I offer my services to be letter number 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Toby. Okay, Mary, I think those are your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a question. It sure seems like both you and Tom keep speaking in the first person and talking about what you want to do, what you think is best to do. I never hear a motion being made. I never hear a vote, and I certainly don't hear anything from you directly or Tom directly or the HAC directly querying what I want, but you are supposed to be my representative. I do not feel that you and Tom represent my interests whatsoever. In the summertime, when we had our meeting about the Rules Committee, thank you, Sandy, for holding that meeting, Tom did not show up, even though primarily he was the champion of the rules, the new rules that he wanted to put in place, that he went by himself to the site authority to say, these are the rules I want for our community. We kept telling you, the residents that were present kept saying, stop, wait, hold on, stop, wait, no, we object, and you kept going forward. I don't understand. Why is it that you feel that our input is not worthy or valid and that you do not need to respect the people that actually voted you into office? Please answer that question before you say, we're going on. Thank you very much.
So Mary, I speak in the first person because until the HAC votes and has a consensus, I am only speaking for myself, even though I'm speaking in the context of an HAC meeting. Second, I have spent, as I described earlier, countless hours trying to work on every owner in the University Glen neighborhood's best interest to put the information on the table so that we can have honest discussions that will have a fiscal impact positively for everyone. Now, that work may bear fruition, it may not. I have done it in partnership with the Finance Committee, and we think we have some valid data. I don't have the Finance Committee's approval to speak in detail about what that is tonight. I did not get an answer. So I'm sorry that you find my representation unconvincing. That is where I believe I can offer the best service to this community, is doing the work and trying to get to a resolution of many of the issues that are sitting on the table.
Thank
Now,
you so
Patrick-
much, Sandy, for your apology. I appreciate it, but I wish you would instead, like my grandfather used to say, stop saying you're sorry and change the behavior. Please be transparent and share the information with us instead of talking in vagaries. Thank you.
Patrick, your turn.
You mentioned it was a 2-2 vote on the Rules Committee. When I'm abstaining, can you share the results of the votes?
No, I will not identify who voted for what.
Why not?
Why? That's not a secret vote.
It's public record. What?
It didn't, the vote did not happen in a meeting. It's not a public record. It was a planning meeting. And that planning meeting was actually happened online. I put out an issue. I asked people to respond. That was the vote that came back. And I don't feel that I have the right to disclose who said what. If the individuals want to tell you who voted howsoever, that's up to the individuals.
Okay, were you acting as a member of the HAC when you had that vote?
We were planning for the next
No, answer
series
the
of
question.
events the HAC would be.
Answer the question. Were you
No,
members of the HAC
We were not,
voting on the rules?
we were not having an HAC meeting, but Patrick, this is not a productive conversation. At this point in time,
Hold on. So you're telling me you have private meetings regarding my rules and regulations? Is that correct, Sandy? Private meetings?
Patrick, we are not ever required as an advisory committee to have a public meeting. We are an advisory committee. We are
Hey,
not
Sandy,
under.
you're required by the GSL to have minutes. So can I see the minutes from that meeting?
That happens during the monthly HAC meeting where we are required to have minutes, and we do.
You know, we're having a one-on-one conversation. Let's have a regular meeting. You said you're gonna follow Robert's Rules of Order. You're having a conversation.
I've given, yes.
Oh, okay, so for everybody listening, let me understand. HAC members, hey, I'm talking, Sandy, you're interrupting. So you've had private meetings regarding our rules and regulations, GSL. Thank you. Okay, is there still a rules committee?
No.
Thank you. Are the new rules dead in the water and you will not proceed with pushing the new rules? Yes or no?
That is, the rules process is currently suspended. It is not necessarily totally dead.
So you will be pushing the new rules eventually?
Not necessarily. There is no decision on that subject.
All right, thank you. So private meetings, thank you.
Okay. Where we are. Yes. I'd like to. Okay. I think we're at Jake's report, right?
I've been following along. That's where you are, Jake. I'll get it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Appreciate it.
Okay, just a couple of updates. Most everything else has been covered. The one thing I would like to let everybody know is an update on the playground refurbishing renovation project. We have good news that we anticipate that the new gym playground equipment will be shipped and will arrive the week of March 4th. So watch, we will be sending out notification of when the playground will be closed. And then they will demo and get everything ready for the arrival. And then it takes about 2 weeks for them to do the actual work, including doing the curbing and then placing the equipment, which will be offloaded and stored in the area of the ground, which it is now. We're going to call it a playground rather than a tot lot, because now we're going up to 12 years rather than less, keeping it at 5 or 6. And so just wanted you to be aware of that. And we're anticipating that we will meet the deadline of the installation by March 30th. And we're looking forward to having some kind of completion celebration, community gathering event on or around March 30th. So keep watching for that. Okay, I did want to mention one thing I didn't mention about the fitness centers, that when they were closed, that we did reduce the cleaning people's weekly fee because they were closed. Wasn't much, but it was acknowledging that they were not cleaning those fitness centers.
Were they not cleaning the community room and things in those bathrooms as well? Because they were locked in there.
Well, they continued to go to they had a key, so they continued particularly to make sure that everything was cleaned up around the pool, so that it had maintained its appearance, particularly with all of the winds and that kind of thing, that they were watching that. So thank you for your question. The next thing I would like to bring up is that yesterday, Tuesday, the 15th, our office sent out the landscape RFP maintenance RFP, which is set up that it would be for a 1-year contract with an option of 2 years extension. And this contract would be basically for what Brightview does. And we're anticipating that the bids will be back on March 11th with the intention of, this is before the final budget goes in, so we can be very clear on what the budget is, because we do anticipate there, based on information on the irrigation program, additional funds, a recommendation as far as upping the time so that we come around and do all 29 clocks on a more regular basis than once a year, which is what was in the budget this year. So I wanted to be aware of that. For those of you who are interested, there is a copy of the RFP along with the list of bidders. There were 7 bidders that we sent it to. Various contractors have been approaching us. And so we have the list and the RFP. It's available for anyone who wants to come to the UGCAM office. It's on the table, so you can see what that is. And we did include in the bid proposal an ad alternate to do all electric equipment. So the blowers and the mowers would be electric rather than gas. And so that was brought up by several people in the community, and so we added that. So we'll keep you apprised of that. The other thing I wanted to mention was that it came to our attention that we've been working with the new requirements for the defensible space, 0 to 5 feet, 5 to 30 feet. And we've gone back through, Ivy and I have gone back through and kind of recategorized some of the plants so that they are, and we worked some with Brightview on this too, to go 0 to 5 feet, which plants are appropriate, and then at the same time, which ones are in shade, which ones are in the sun, so that going forward, that it's more of a check off what is this and what grows there. The thing that in conversation with the university is that as of July 1st, this year, there was AB 38, which said that from Ventura County, which said that there's no mulch within 0 to 5 feet. And so, huh?
Do we have to follow it because I was counting?
Right now, your point's well taken. Until that is clarified differently, and I'm not dealing with Ventura County's fire prevention's representative, that we are moving forward, looking at the second phase of the landscape refurbishing with their plants and ground covers that can be used within the 0 to 5 feet, as long as they are alive. The rosemary is not one of those. And the star jasmine, there's conversation about what is and what isn't. There are other ground covers that could be used. And at the same time, it kept coming up that if we had money for rock, that we would use rock as the ground cover rather than dirt. Right now, the university has pulled all their mulch and just has bare dirt. And so if you want to see how that looks, go over to the university. And where we are right now is we're not adding any more mulch at this point. And until we know for sure how we're moving forward, we're just kind of leaving it where it is, so that all of our irrigation piping and everything doesn't distract. And we really don't want to have Brightview removing stuff that we don't want them spending the time on something that until we know what we need to do. So with that in mind, we became aware that there were in December, there were grants that were opened up, or grant applications.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, that Tom reminded us, and we worked together on it, that there are grants through the state for state lands and people who are in very high hazard fire zones to address the 0 to 5 foot and areas. And so Ivy and I put the grant together, and we sent it in for adding 3/4 inch rock within the 5 foot as a ground cover. What we did was, we're fortunate that with Brightview, we did have the square footage for all of the planters because they've been working on the landscape refurbishing. And so we figured that there would be about half of those planters would have some kind of plant material. And so we put the square footage at half of that, and we put in a grant for $365,000 for 3/4 inch rock.
Who wrote the grant?
Pardon me?
Who wrote the grant?
Ivy and I.
Thank you.
And then we also got letters of support from Lori Nichols with the Site Authority, and also Carmen Ramirez. And so we're hopeful because it's very targeted. It's in a high fire area, and we could use it now. You know, and so that is kind of the final item that I have.
That's very good news. Thank you.
On the rock grant, movie star. Carol and I were talking about this a little while ago. Does the grant include ground cover for the Long Creek corridor, like along where Toby lives, that whole half mile?
At the present time, not.
Didn't include that?
No, it did not.
But the grant has options for continued research and funding. So
And
if
other
we get the
things.
first one and we successfully implement it, we just simply go back to the well and try to get down to.
Clearly, a plan has to be put in place, but that might be part of the plan for the Long Creek corridor because it's a mess. So.
Yeah. Okay, here, take the microphone.
My first question is, does that would that grant also be for the apartments, or is that just for?
It's all common
It's
areas.
all common areas. Okay, my other question kind of goes back before you said you sent it out to 7 bidders. Is Brightview one of those bidders? All right, thank you.
But Jake, you were going to make an offer for additional bidders that you didn't make.
Okay. I know that various people have said, could you, other bidders, if you're aware of any other bidders, just send them to us. Basically, because of the size of the property, there are a lot of the contractors are keeping track of us and know when our RFP goes out. And so their business development people have been with us. So the 7 that we have are the ones that we send it to. If anybody knows of any others, I'm very willing to just send me the name and I'll be happy to send it to them.
I sent a request to the landscape committee for them. Anyone who knew, kind of had personal experience with a medium-sized vendor. Did you hear from anyone?
No.
Okay, I have one addition I would like to add. They're medium-sized and can handle our size property.
That's fine.
So we really are serious about community input on other folks with whom this RFP could be shared for the broadest group of responders possible to give us information and choice.
We have 3 questions in the chat. 1, who are you dealing with? The fire prevention, private company ?
It's not a private company.
Ventura County Fire.
The person who has been with Tom and I walked the neighborhood with him, and others walked the neighborhood with him. Several months ago was Larry Williamson. I don't know who is the person responsible for.
My understanding of the way that this has worked is that last November, year ago, November, in November 2020, that CAL FIRE designated Ventura County Fire Prevention as the agent for CAL FIRE to review and supervise fire prevention in in Ventura County. And by default for University Glen and the basically University Glen and the courtyards over at the university. That is my understanding from my conversation with Jason Hughes, as well as Larry Williamson.
Question, who are the 7 contractors with the landscape?
Come by the office and I can show you the list. I'm happy to share that with you.
So it's a little bit of a one-off. The other day when we had a brief meeting with Brightview to talk about the plant palette, I heard something that surprised me, and I'll take this to the bag if Kevin, if you and Sandy are willing to take this back. So my understanding is that the fire clearance work that we're doing, the 100-foot, which in some areas like where Toby lives, goes beyond the U Glen property, goes beyond the GG path and up into the hillside, that we are paying for the entire 100 feet. And so my question is, my understanding was when brush clearance like that is done, the property owner pays for it. So part of that cost should have been split.
That's exactly right.
And there were some expensive trees taken out. That big palm tree, I mean, that took a crew all day. So that should not be our cost. It's beyond U Glen property. So
Who owns that property?
The school.
yeah, it's a school.
CSUCI.
Oh, so they have to pay for the brush clearance. It's the owner that has the brush.
Well, it's who owns the property.
Right.
So
the property owner that has the brush.
So the argument is where U Glen property stops, we stop paying.
That's exactly right. That's the way it always is. And if they don't remove the brush, then they get fined.
So the answer might actually technically be CSU, Because if it's site authority land that's on the other side,
It's not us. I don't care who.
it's not us, but it could easily be, there's a ground sublease that the site authority has with CSU Board of Trustees.
No. We have paid, and has paid, right, you? At the point that university. Oh.
Heidi, thank you.
I think that the answer is yes, the community has been paying for the 100-foot clearance.
Yes, ma'am.
So with CAL FIRE giving the local jurisdiction, Ventura County Fire, the overarching advice in making sure we're in code compliance, are we relying on state jurisdiction when it comes to fire code or Ventura County? Because if we are on state land, Ventura County fire restrictions are more stringent. They would be the first ones in for a fire anywhere in Southern California that would affect you, Glenn. I think we should, if there's difference of code, we should go off of what Ventura County requires other than the state, because it would be more advantageous for us with the local jurisdictions being the first one to respond to a fire in our jurisdiction. I mean, normally I don't want what's Ventura County here, I want what's the state on state land. Knowing what the Ventura County Fire Department does, because I'm working in the fire department, right? I have worked years with the fire department. The local jurisdiction is going to do a far better job with fire protection if we follow their guidelines. If we know what the state guidelines are, and they're like, you should do this, but however, you're on state land, you can do this. I think that could be a potential recipe for disaster for us.
I agree with you 100%, and we've already had 2 fires blow through here, and we already have issues with too much density and access through those roads, so we have to keep the community as safe as possible.
But I think though, this isn't our decision to make. We're being told who regulates us.
Well, then that's going to be ultimately that if Ventura County Fire's out here, they're the ones that will keep us in code compliance, so they'll be more stringent in the state.
That too should be brought up to the site authority or whoever does it.
Jake's tracking all this. I think we don't know yet, really don't know who governs our, we know that.
Well, wait here, let me, I suggest we go on whatever Ventura County says, because the county has more regulations than the state, therefore we would be more advantageous for fire protection.
Maybe.
With,
Well, that's right. Yeah, there's some other issues that
I think
you don't want to do that.
I think that's true. I think what my understanding is what has happened is that some of the direction done by Ventura County recently has brought the question to CSUCI as far as compliance with some endangered species issues. And so it's kind of like they are, CSUCI and Ventura County Fire Protection are working with this much more actively than I am. And so where it comes from my standpoint is that, yes, we are using the Ventura County as far as 0 to 5 feet and 5 to 30. Yes, they are more stringent. We are assuming they're the ones, Ventura County is going to be the one who's we're going to deal with, because that's who we dealt with for the 100-foot clearance. And in our conversation, and this was something with various people, including Lori Nichols, for when we talked about the 100-foot clearance, that it was clear that we were talking with Larry Williams about it. And he was someone who, that when you go to the state requirements, And the state requirements have guidelines for ground covers and, taking rosemary out, leaving jasmine between 6 and 18 inches tall, all of that. When we talked with Ventura County Fire about it, he said it needed to be bare dirt or rock. There was no ground cover. And so some of what we're looking at is how is that married, and what we're approaching is, let's go with what we would like it to look like and what ground cover we would, the state may say, and have Ventura County will say, look, the state says this, and yes, we keep it watered, and yes, it is an aesthetic that we agree on. And
we might want to
and
have the neighborhood look like what we want it to look like after a fire blows through.
Well,
we can't play devil's advocate. I'd rather have my house standing after a fire than some shrubbery before a fire.
Okay. But there are guidelines on how much, it's like the amount of shrubbery, with in between and using succulents and all that kind of stuff. And so, we're trying to figure out what is acceptable. And everybody understands that because this is an existing property, my understanding is it does not go into effect, as far as compliance requirements and citing people until January 24. And so, yes, we have a little bit of time. At the same time, we don't want to be spending money that doesn't take care of it the first time. So that's why it is unfortunately why we haven't moved faster. So that's where we are. Here. Okay, so there we go.
What Jake hasn't talked about, to me, is personally, is the bigger issue is trees. Because we heard a pretty extreme viewpoint from the county. And it's not pretty. So we need to understand.
I'm sorry, see, this is a problem. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and start tearing up.
Yeah, well, no, and I don't think we will, but the point is, I think that's even the bigger issue. We haven't really talked about that yet, but.
And it's really getting late, so.
Every year where we live, it's only going to get more strict. And even on the state standpoint, they cut back regulations every year. They get tighter and tighter because they lose so much.
Tell me to shut up.
Okay. I'm serious. Why are we going up to 32 acres?
Okay.
Cindy,
are we good?
Thank you.
Okay, so I think where we are at this point,
It's almost 9 o'clock.
is
I think we already had our public comments. I thought we're supposed to have them afterwards. Why do we have them?
okay, so where we are is, I think additional topics, I had one, I think we won't talk about it tonight. We are now at public comments. We have 2 people signed up for public comments. They will have 3 minutes each, and Patrick is the first public commenter.
All right, thank you. Is someone keeping the time so I can see where I am?
Is there somebody with a phone that can give him time?
I'll do the timing.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Ready.
All right. First of all, I've been here since 2006, and we have had already mobilized the community years ago against Eric Blaine and the University Glen Corporation regarding the funny math and now reserves. Y'all are spitting in the wind getting the SA to open the books. We need to get legal representation and take Glen Corp or whoever replaced them to court. Second, I don't trust Jake and KW. Still waiting for answers regarding GSL issues. He forces me to submit FOIA requests through the CSUCI Public Document Center for the paperwork. Jake will tell us to come down and view the documents. Dude, most of us work. He could do us a solid, but he doesn't. He works for KW. KW closed the workout center because a couple people pushed back on the mask mandates. 270 doors and apartment dwellers? And did anyone from UG Cam push back? He does not have our best interests in mind. Why is he even here? GSL says hack handles the agenda and minutes. I don't trust the hack, except for two people, Malia and Carolyn. They return emails and push back, as you could hear from this meeting. I don't trust Tom nor Sandra. Private meetings? At the last SA meeting, November 2021, thanks, Simone. In the meeting, Tom Bokart, B-O-K-H-A-R-T, pushed the SA twice to adopt his new rules and regulations. They know he is part of the hack and was a lead only member of the rules committee. If you believe him when he tells us he was only acting as a resident, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you. And Sandra Boyd, please. We had a resident meeting about the new rules over by the pool. Remember, Sandra? No one wanted your and Tom's rules. Yet you continued the meeting trying to chat about the rules. Thank God you stopped and ended the meeting. Speaking of the hack, we need to change the format. Mr. Williamson, the original member trying to add rules to align us with Kennedy Wilson, had suggestions about how these meetings are run. He is not here anymore, and his ideas should leave with him. Time the residents set the agenda. Impeachment proceedings for hack members should be adopted. You know what? Maybe Jake can talk to his buddy in the SA. What do you say, Jake? I've been here since 2006. As we say in the Marine Corps, I was fat, dumb, and happy until Jake and KW came in with grubby, greedy hands. Hey, Jake, I'm going to leave my cans out for too long. Try and find me. We are all busy and have invested a lot of time, money, and energy in you, Glenn. Isn't it time the hack and UG Cam work with us and not against us? I'll close with an excellent phrase which completely describes my feelings. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Jake. Let's go, Sandy. Thank you.
Very good. You had 3 seconds left.
Toby, here, Toby, join us here, here's the mic.
I've been going through the recordings because the minutes don't usually contain enough information. So I have a question for Tom Bokart. At one time, you were directed by Chris Williams to talk to insurance agents about D&O insurance. You remember that?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. So, okay. So you never searched out D&O insurance and we're not paying for it.
No.
Okay, great. That's really good news because you're not directors or officers.
I think it just kind of seemed,
Just got lost in the wind.
well, it wasn't lost. It just
I'm happy you got lost because you're not a director. You're not a director and you're not an officer. You're a volunteer and you're protected under the VPA of 1997. If you make an error, you're entitled to that. You're a volunteer. Not the same as negligence. You can't paint your own house, okay? So what I wanted to ask you about is in the October HAC meeting, I politely requested that the HAC and Jake Friesen look into the legal ramifications of things that are happening because I did not believe the ground sublease authorizes you to fund committees. The finance committee is not funded. None of the other committees are funded, but someone chose to fund garden. Someone chose to fund social club. And there was an item in the budget for mediation. None of those things are in my ground sublease. I don't think I should have to pay for them. I came to you and I said, Sandy has explained to me that the management fees are incredibly high, like $300,000 a year. And Sandy, you told me, please don't misunderstand that. That's not Jake's salary. That includes backup management, backroom things, the accounting, all of the services that Kennedy Wilson provides. So I would think that that would provide some type of legal advice as to whether Jake can actually reimburse somebody for stuff. I think we know what stuff is already. If you don't, candy, popcorn, goodie bags, nonsense. So I wanted to know if he has the official and legal lawful right to take maintenance rents and disperse them in that manner. Kennedy Wilson should be able to clear that up right away. If not, you as HAC members should be able to go to the site authority and say, hey, who gave us this ability? Because I don't see that you have that ability anywhere. Now, Jake was the only one who responded. So that's October, November, December, January, say 4 months, but maybe 5. Jake was the only one who responded to me. And his response was, the HAC brought it to the bag at the site authority's approval. But I don't think they have that right. And I wanted an answer, and I haven't gotten an answer. So when I asked you, would you please look into something, because many professionals tell me that probably wouldn't be allowed. It's not normal and customary. I would hope you'd follow up on it and check into it, because I don't want you to be in a place where you're considered negligent. Oh, okay. So I just don't want you to feel that you're in a place of negligence.
Can I ask for clarification? Funding of committees or funding of other things as well?
Like the garden. Social.
Social committee.
Okay, are we done with this meeting? I make a motion that we're done with this meeting. That we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Me.
The meeting is adjourned.
That's the only motion we made. Yeah.